Hi, gang. Bob Boving here for the Mystery Project and another episode of Clean Sweep by Elf Silver, featuring Bonnie and Ben Marsden. In the Maritimes, you're never far from history, and sometimes it has a way of erupting out of the past with surprising effect. And sometimes, too, the documenting of that history produces more questions than it ever answers. This is Clean Sweep, Episode 16, The Face on the Wall, starring Deborah Allen and Richard Donat as Bonnie and Ben Marsden.
Something about cleaning houses.
That's you, Mommy.
No prize,
you're an expert.
I wouldn't say an expert, but that's what they pay me to do.
I sure can't solve.
3 cards, Mr. Dealer.
Last week, I heard through a friend that a Mrs. Joyce Hanlon in the old McDermott house up on the Wreck Point Road was having an interesting phenomenon that she don't find too interesting. A faintly glowing face that appears on her bedroom wall at night.
Oh, it must be there all the time. Just too faint to see in daylight.
Some kind of mold stain. You get moisture in the walls.
4 cards, please, Mr. Dealer.
Power tools. So, even though Halloween is past, I thought you might be interested if I took my trusty tape recorder and... I'm getting out of the old Honda now and heading toward the house. It's a lonely spot up here, with the wind whistling in off the water and a full moon.
Very scary.
I'm at the front door now, and...
That's scary.
Mrs. Hanlon? I'm Bob Smiling.
Hi, Bob. Come in.
Oh, thank you.
Don't go in there.
I'm moving up the stairs now, but the pair of gorgeous Rottweilers are staying downstairs. It's a beautiful old house, maybe 100 years old.
150. This way.
We're going into the bedroom now.
I'll just turn off the light.
Well, I'll be darned. It does look sort of like a face. A man with a big beard and a big head. Bigger than mine. And I'm a big man with a big head. Kind of a faint bluey green on the white wall.
I've tried every cleaner on the market. Even tried painting it over, but it came back through the paint. If anybody has any suggestions, I'd sure appreciate it. And thanks for coming, Bob.
Well, I don't mind telling you, listeners, it was kind of spooky. Maybe it was just the full moon. But here's your challenge. If you think you know how to get rid of that face on Mrs. Hanlon's wall...
I'm driving past Wreck Point tomorrow. It'll be dark by the time I've finished the senator's house. It wouldn't hurt to get Bonnie's cleaning service on the radio.
I bet for a penny.
Or...
And for the face on...
Come on in and I'll close the door so they can't go chasing trucks. They're pussycats once you're inside of the family.
Some pussycats. I'm Bonnie Marsden.
I guessed. You look just like you do on the phone. Come on upstairs.
Some house. Have you been living here long?
Just since the spring. My husband bought this place a few years ago and was gradually getting it fixed up as a surprise. He was full of surprises. The divorce settlement I'm waiting for is he gets the house in Halifax and I get this place plus the difference in property values. That's my bedroom just ahead. Watch the dogs.
The dogs?
You'll see. They used to sleep on my bed. But now, they won't come in this room. It's on that wall there, between the window and the corner.
I don't see anything.
Because the light's on.
Oh, yeah. I can see it. Kind of faintly.
It glows brighter as the night gets later.
Oh, I guess it would as things get darker. Probably some kind of phosphorescent fungus. It does look kind of like a face with a big beard.
Kind of. When it first started up, a few weeks ago, it was just kind of a weak haze, but grew stronger every night. Now, I can see him staring at me as I get into bed.
Well, why don't you move to another room?
What? Because of some kind of phosphorescent fungus?
Have you tried bleach?
Most of the cleansers had bleach in them. I've got a cupboard full of them.
No, I mean straight bleach.
Won't it hurt the plaster?
Not unless you throw it on by the bucketful. But a bit of straight bleach will kill anything living.
Oh, sounds like feeding time. I just got one weaned when another was ready to start up.
You were pregnant when he...
Yeah. Told you he was full of surprises.
Well, you go deal with that face, and I'll deal with this one. Or I'll try.
How's it going?
I'm just finishing up, I think. Why don't you turn the light off and we'll see?
Oh. Bonnie. It's gone. Oh, and I was getting some foolish about it. Thank you. What can I pay you?
Oh, this'll turn into some free advertising on the radio. Didn't take me but a few minutes. It sure is a beautiful house.
Apparently it wasn't when my husband bought it. I guess the last generation of McDermotts didn't treat it very well, and it stood empty for a few years after that. The man who restored the woodwork did such a beautiful job, you'd never know unless you knew. My husband said it was a local man. Maybe you know him. Donald Fisher?
Knew him. He took a heart attack a couple of years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't know him well. But my daughter Darcy used to work for him. Maybe even worked on this house.
Small world.
Nova Scotia. You can't live in Nova Scotia unless you know everybody's second cousin and believe in ghost stories. But sometimes they're just phosphorescent fungus.
The cousins?
Sometimes. You don't have to walk me to the car.
The least I can do is carry your bucket.
Expecting company?
No. Oh, it's the handyman.
Mrs. Hanlon, I just come by to tell you, the weather says no wind tomorrow, so I can burn off that trash.
I have to take the babies into the pediatrician tomorrow, but you've got a key, so you can help yourself to whatever you need. Jim White, Bonnie Marsden. Mrs. Marsden just got rid of that face on the wall.
You some sort of exorcist or something?
Kind of. You going to be back before Melissa gets home from school?
Yep.
Well, regular listeners might remember the story of the spooky face on the wall, the face of a big man with a big black beard. A couple of days ago, I announced that Bonnie Marsden of Bonnie's Cleaning Service had gotten rid of it. Well, I've got a new piece of news for you and for Bonnie Marsden. He's back.
Damn.
So here's another song for...
Yep. Must be moisture seeping into the wall somewhere. Maybe a leaky soffit.
Oh, to hell with the soffits. This isn't the kind of free advertising I was looking for. Bonnie's Cleaning Service sounds like a joke. I'm going to phone Darcy.
What for?
Oh, maybe old Donald Fisher told her something about that house that'll tell me how to get that damn face off the wall for good.
Yeah, I remember the house, Mom. I only worked on it a couple of days, but I know Donald had a bug in his ear about it.
Why?
Well, they kept telling him it was 150 years old, and he swore it was older than that.
Well, 150, 160.
More like 200. He swore he was going to find out and prove it, but before he got around to it...
Yeah, Donald Fisher never would admit he wasn't 30 years old anymore. How was he planning to find out and prove it?
Oh, a couple of years ago, there was a project in the basement of the courthouse, one of those summer employment things. They had a bunch of old copies of the Membertou County Journal, some of them as far back as the 1700s, and they got a grant to hire a student to type them into a government surplus computer. I don't think they ever got it finished, but...
Now,
computers...
WordPerfect 4.1? Was it a yard sale? Well, all I need is a C prompt.
Oh, I thought...
I know, you thought I was just a cleaning lady or something. I am.
Suit yourself, then.
McDermott. Okay, say 1850. I have to ask you to do me a favor.
Sure, Mom. Maybe I shouldn't speak too soon.
Oh, it shouldn't take you long when you get the time. You see, I've almost got it, but I hit a dead end.
Almost got what?
I wrote some of it down. Donald Fisher was right. The house was bought by a McDermott in 1858 from a Mr. Hebb. I guess that first McDermott didn't want his kids to know there was any bad history about their home, so he told them Mr. Hebb had built the house, and they passed it on to their kids, and...
Well, what kind of bad history?
The house was built by a sea captain named LeBlanc in about 1796 or so.
Donald said 200 years.
LeBlanc is an Acadian name. The Acadians got deported from Nova Scotia in 1750-something.
1755. I took history a lot more recently than you did. Well, when they let the Acadians come back, their farms had all been given to the planters from New England. So the Acadians had to settle for pieces of sand and gravel down around Digby.
Not Captain LeBlanc. Well, maybe he started there, but he worked his way up. Maybe even owned his own ship. And built a big house on a fine piece of land on Wreck Point. Might even have been the land his family lived on before the expulsion. Captain LeBlanc bought it back.
No way to know that. When word came the Acadians were coming back, a lot of the places where the old land records were kept went up in accidental fires. So the Acadians couldn't claim back their farms from the planters.
Well, they didn't teach me that in history.
Me neither. Donald told me. So, what's the bad history about Captain LeBlanc's house? It sounds like he did pretty good so far.
Well, he died in some sort of accident. And that's where I hit the dead end. You see, in the Membertou County Journal for April 7th, 1798, there's an ad for an auction of the furniture and property of the widow LeBlanc to make up debts owed by her late husband's estate to Walter Payton and Company. A little article on the side says the Journal asked Mr. Walter Payton if he didn't feel a little uncomfortable about throwing a widow and her children out on the road, and Mr. Payton replied, "I like it no better than you, but business is business."
Mr. Walter Payton sounds straight out of Charles Dickens.
But I haven't got the whole story yet. They only say that Captain LeBlanc died in the well-known tragedy 5 months before the auction. That would put it in November of 1797. Exactly 200 years, maybe to the day, before the face appeared on Joyce Hanlon's wall.
Mom, you're not starting to believe...
Of course not, but it's kind of a strange coincidence, don't you think? Anyway, the journals of November 1797 didn't get copied into the computer. But the clerk told me all the originals got sent over to the Provincial Archives in Halifax, which is just a few blocks around the corner from you.
You're subtle, Mom.
Well?
No problem. But I might not be able to get to it for a few days.
No rush.
Sure. When you get curiosity fits, you've got all the time in the world. I'll call you back the instant I know.
Promise?
I promise. Bye, Mom.
Bye, dear.
I don't see how all that is going to help you figure out how there's moisture getting into Mrs. Hanlon's wall.
Well, maybe there's more to it than that.
What more to it?
I don't know. It just seems like too much coincidence. Two strange things about one old house.
Oh, you go back 200 years, you'll probably find more than two strange things about any house.
Anyway, when Darcy calls back, now that she knows how old the house is, maybe she can tell you some trick about the way they did construction in antique houses.
Me?
But in the meanwhile, you got any work on tomorrow?
No, except hauling some firewood in the basement. You?
Just one house in the morning. So maybe in the afternoon we could take a run to Wreck Point. Just pull up for a second, okay? Hello, Jim White.
Mrs. Exorcist.
Mrs. Hanlon's mailbox rusted out?
No. She just told me to change the name. Paint out Hanlon and paint on Peyton.
Peyton? Why?
Ask her.
She's out in the yard, giving the baby some air.
This is called snow, Mikey. You'll see a lot of it in the next 80 years. Hi, Bonnie.
Joyce Hanlon, my husband Ben.
Oh?
Nice to meet you, Ben. But it isn't Hanlon anymore. The divorce decree finally came through, so I can go back to my maiden name.
Peyton?
How did you... Oh, you saw the mailbox.
How long has your family been in Nova Scotia?
More than 200 years, I guess. Some Peytons were supposed to be some of the first planters from New England, after the expulsion.
They settled around here?
I don't know. I don't go in much for family trees and that. There's hundreds of Peytons all over the province now, some of them not even related. Why?
Oh, just curious. I felt so bad about thinking I'd fixed the stain on the wall when I didn't.
Oh, that's all right.
That I talked Ben into coming along to take a look at. Well, Ben's worked on a lot of houses, and he thinks maybe the stain's because there's some moisture leaking into the walls. If you don't mind.
I'll take any help I can get.
I got a ladder in the back of the truck. I better get to it if we're going to be back before Melissa's home from school.
He's getting stronger, Bonnie.
Who is?
The face on the wall. I can see him more clearly every night. And now he's got hands.
Oh, it's just a stain on the wall, Joyce. Some kind of phosphorescent mold. Maybe we should get a cup of tea while Ben's checking out the roof. Melissa, bedtime.
Just 5 more minutes.
Okay, but I've set the timer.
I still don't get it. Not even a hairline gap under the eaves or the cladding. I'm sure I found something. If she'd let me get behind that piece of wall.
Maybe she would have let you if you hadn't said, how about I just tear out that wall there?
Huh? Oh, it's just an expression I didn't really mean.
XJ55, Pissaquin Village Fire Department. House fire. The old McDermott house on Wreck Point.
Keep your head down under the smoke. Breathe. Or you won't see anything.
Yeah.
You see a glow?
Not a damn thing.
Yeah, neither do I. I think we killed it all. Except the smoke. I'm just about out of oxygen. Let's go back for another bottle and come back for one more check.
What the hell is that sound?
I don't know. I don't know. I never heard nothing like it in my life. Look, Reed, just keep on crawling and follow the hose. Here. You want to take my bottle for a fresh one while you trade yours?
No deposit, no return.
I'll just scoot past the van, make sure Miss Peyton and her kids are still sitting cozy. Flashover. All the walls flamed out at once like a match head. Bert McGuigan was blown out through the picture window.
Is he?
3rd-degree burns all down his back. If me and Reed had still been in the basement, that would have been it. It's funny. With a flashover, it's usually... There's all that heat in the walls, but not enough oxygen to flame. And the instant you open the door and let the air in, this was like 5 or 10 minutes before it blew. Sometimes when people want to torch a place, they put jars of gas in the walls.
I think Joyce Peyton would rather have the house than insurance money.
Well, if there's anything there, the insurance investigators will find it. Those boys don't miss much. That sound was like a whispering in the walls. And when that place blew, for the first instant, it wasn't like flame. It was just a white heat.
Oh, my God.
Huh?
White. LeBlanc.
What?
I didn't introduce you before. This is my husband, Ben. Jim White.
How did you know where I live?
It took some asking around.
When did your family change their name, Jim?
What?
Well, a lot of LeBlancs changed their name to White when it wasn't fashionable to be Acadian.
I wouldn't know anything about that. I mean, it's always been White, as far as I know.
You sure about that? Traditions get handed down, like traditions about Captain LeBlanc and Walter Payton.
Who? What? Are you too crazy?
I'll tell you what's crazy. Bert McGuigan's in hospital with third-degree burns and a mess of broken bones.
You know, Jim, I never would have put it together, except that a couple of months ago, a woman I was cleaning house for went through exactly the same thing. Somebody thought she didn't have a right to live where she was living, so he kept sneaking into her house while she was gone and leaving things to scare her.
I never snuck into nobody's house.
I heard Joyce say you've got a key.
I got a key to the shed, so as I can get out the wheelbarrow or the pruning shears and that.
Well, most houses are easy enough to break into without leaving any sign. If somebody's handy and has time.
Yeah, sure. I could have broke in there if I wanted to. But I wouldn't have got out again. You ever notice there was a big running pen for the dogs right behind the house?
Yeah?
Well, the back door of the house had a doggy gate in it, so them two Rottweilers could go from the pen into the house whenever they felt like it. Believe me, lady, I've never been in that house, except when Mrs. Hanlon, Miss Payton, was with me.
Yeah, I guess you weren't. Come on, Ben. Sorry to trouble you, Jim.
Nice chainsaw. Be in bed by now. Stop by the fire hall for a beer on the way home.
How's Bert?
Oh, he'll pull through. He's a McGuigan. Need a silver bullet to kill him. The chief told me the insurance inspectors have sifted through the ashes, but they haven't found any evidence for arson or any obvious cause for the fire.
I wonder if there is any obvious cause to find. Could have been spontaneous combustion.
It happens.
Isn't spontaneous combustion what happens when two elements that can't coexist get brought together? They just ignite?
I guess you could put it that way sometimes.
Darcy called while you were out. She found that old newspaper.
Oh?
The debt that Captain LeBlanc's estate, old Walter Payton, was for a cargo Captain LeBlanc's ship was carrying.
Mm-hmm.
The tragic accident was that Captain LeBlanc's ship went down trying to round Wreck Point in a storm. His wife was probably watching from the widow's walk on the house he built for her.
Damn.
The old newspaper said that even those who hadn't known Captain LeBlanc by name would remember seeing him around Membertou County. A very tall, heavy-set, fiercely proud-looking man. The big black beard.
Nah.
This was The Face on the Wall, the latest episode of Clean Sweep by Elf Silver. In the cast today, Deborah Allen was Bonnie, Richard Donat was Ben, Ashley Swain was Melissa. Genevieve Steele was Darcy. Ingrid Doucette was Joyce Hanlon Payton. Josh McDonald was Jim White. Sam White was Reed Olson. And George Jordan was the radio announcer. The music was composed by Scott McMillan and David McIsaac. The performance featured Gordon Stovey, Jenny Gatti, and Andre Lacroix, together with the two composers. The recording engineer was Pat Martin, with sound effects by Dermot Kenny. The associate producer was Peggy Hemsworth. Casting by John Dunsworth and Alex Duncan. The program was produced and directed in Halifax by Bill Howell, the executive producer of the Mystery Project. I'm Bob Boving, thanking you for listening and inviting your comments.